moon's racing against the sunset. And so we've had a wonderful evening, and now we're going to come to the morning hymn by Rodgers and Hammerstein. I hope you enjoy. And this is the Alleluia. And that one's by Rodgers and Hammerstein. And so we recently had let's have a little bit of a switch. I'm gonna try the blue switch by Roxana Moijano. Oh, my liver's, I played a Lion and Healy Liver 40 Prelude. Actually, you know what, I want to try my usual equestrian trails. so that was, I have one more if you have time for one more. And this should be my last one. And this is Battle Hymn of the Republic. Let's see, I'm going to turn up my A flats. Hey. Happy belated 4th of July, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your summer. Unless you want me to play one more. Can you hear me?
Thank you very much, Kim. That was great. Let me check with the crew on the ground. Barbara, are you ready to get started with the meeting?
I'll join on my other device.
Yes, we are here and trying to attract people's attention to let them know that the meeting is actually about to start. Well, welcome everybody. This is the July, if you can believe it, the July meeting of Orange County Astronomers. I'm not sure where all of you are. If you're anywhere around Southern California, you know that we are in the midst of our own bit of a heat wave, which so far is nowhere as bad as it has been in other parts of the country, or I'm afraid other parts of the world. But in spite of that, we are still having the Star Party and the Starbecue tomorrow night. So if you're in the vicinity, want to come out to Anza for the Starbecue, we look forward to seeing you there. And we do have a really great program set up tonight. So I think without any more ado, I should turn it over to our announcement crew who is back. Welcome, Kyle Graham, and take it away.
All right, here we go. Share. Here we are. So welcome new members. You can find your name badges either on the whiteboard right behind Barbara, or they'll be mailed to you, whichever is easier. It'll probably take about a month for them to get made and processed. Star parties, as Barbara mentioned, the Starbecue is at the Anza Star Party on July 15th. Special interest group meetings, astrophysics is going to be on July 21st at 7:30 at the Heritage Museum. The next beginners class will be August 4th. And the next OCA board meeting will be July 30th at 11:30 a.m. Those last two are both online, and you can get more information about all the events and the appropriate links on the OCA Astronomers website. Starbecue again, as mentioned. Our outreach coordinator is Jeff Gray. You can contact him using the email there, outreach@ocastronomers.org. The coffee stand is open. Feel free to purchase coffee, donuts, water, etc. Up at when you walked into the auditorium, there's a stand up there. If you're in person, sorry if you're online, we can't teleport coffee and donuts to you. Next, we'll move on to the Adopt Scope program. This is on the website. You can see the current inventory as well as sample adoption agreement, and there's more information about the program there. This kind of just shows you how to get to it on the website. If there are items of interest that you would like to put in the Serious Astronomer newsletter, please contact Dave Fisher, and he will review those items of interest. There's some examples there of types of things that we find interesting to put in the newsletter. Everyone is always by default mailed a printed copy of the Serious Astronomer newsletter. If you would like to opt out of receiving that printed copy mailed to you once a month, please email Charlie and he can update that for you. All members always have access to the newsletter online. Reminder to keep weeds clear at ANZA, especially as we're coming into fire season. Make sure to keep those clear and please help with common areas. And we'll be moving on to the main presentation, and Chris Butler will be doing the what's up. Thank you.
Barbara, you're mute. Just give me a second. You have to click the unmute request.
Chris Butler is just about here, and I will turn the microphone over to him.
Okay, this is the voice of Chris, not on camera yet, but wandering in. Oh, thank you very much. Fantastic. It would be surprising if everything was completely smooth, because this is my first time doing What's Up in person in I think 3 years. So I just wanted to get over my stage fright a little bit. Which actually, let's see, are we on? We're exploring the mysteries of screen share right now. Is that visible to you all in electronic land?
We're seeing the PowerPoint presentation, not in the
Right,
presentation.
Oh wow, it's not going to make any sense if it's not full screen. It's easy. It's full screen here in the room, but the audience online. Oh wow, I miss from Anza.
Okay, now we're seeing the presenter's view.
Yeah. Okay, well, let me see. What is that? How do I
flip the
full screen here?
No, that's a blank screen.
Well, yeah, that's it. It requires a little imagination. Let's see. Well, we got this audience here. I got to keep happy and entertained. It is wonderful to be back in a room with all the people for the heckling purposes. It's nice to keep me a little bit sharp. I could tell you a good story. Well, you egged me on. You told me. Okay, bit of trivia for you all. This is something that will probably get me fired from the observatory, but it is a secret for when you visit the front lawn. They have these brass lines in the pavement making the orbits of the planets to scale. One of them is wrong. And well, it wasn't originally when they put it in there. They carefully laid these in. It was the orbit of Mercury.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. It's perfect on our side. I hope that's the same with the in-person audience. Is that so?
What was it? Well, yeah. Yeah, in-person audience is happy.
Okay, so you're telling us about the brass plate that's wrong?
No, it's not too bad. I'll tell you very quickly. What happened was the brass they laid in, because it was the tightest orbit, it got bent a few times, and the director of the observatory didn't like that. So he insisted we jackhammer the concrete out and pull the brass and put it in again, which they did. We laid out a track for the correct shape for Mercury's orbit. They got the brass in there or ready to lay it down. And somebody centered the orbit at the last second. A construction worker said, oh, that thing's not centered. Scooted it with their foot, centered it, and then they laid the brass lines in and concreted them into place. So I mentioned this to Dr. Krupp, and he said there's a tradition of all cathedrals in Europe have one flaw, so as not to offend the Almighty, you are trying to build a perfect building. That is our secret flaw, and it's right on the front lawn for you all.
Okay,
So there
looks
you
like
go.
we
We
lost.
lost the view in the for the audience.
Okay, are we good? May I begin and see if this works?
We're not good. We lost
We're
the
not-
whatever Chris did. It lost the view.
Okay, yeah, I didn't do anything. I just it was okay. It's very sentimental
Okay,
for me.
it's showing-
Where are we back?
It's all good here.
I knew everything was going to be just fine if I came back and did it in person.
You're all good online. Are you good in person? Do you see the same thing we have?
Are you good online?
Yes, we are all good online.
Oh, no worries, no worries. Okay, let's see what happens. I'm going to push the button and let's see if we can find out what is up in the sky. Looking at the sun at this time of year, we are past the June solstice, the longest nights or longest days and the shortest nights of the year. However, we still have very, very long days. As you can see, we don't get sunset till after 8 o'clock at this particular day, and we get sunrise about 5:52 in the morning. So that just gives you more time to, be indoors and away from your telescope. That's good for family purposes, families like that. As far as the phases of the moon, we started out with a full moon and we will end up with a nearly full moon. We're about halfway through that cycle right now. So we've got a crescent moon in the morning sky right now, clocking down to the dark of the moon on July 17th. And then we'll have first quarter half-lit moon in the morning skies on the 25th. For the list of what's going on with the planets, couple things to note. Mercury is starting an elongation in the evening sky right now. So right now it's about 15 degrees away from the sun. It's not ideal, but it is going to be good for a couple of weeks. So Mercury might want to catch in the evening sky in the west. Venus is the flying saucer that everyone is reporting, of course, and constantly calling the observatory about. The bright light in the west at sunset. Venus is dropping now. It is past that elongation. It is swung out as far from the sun as it's going to. It's a crescent in your telescope and is rapidly growing large. So good time to look at Venus if you want to through a telescope. Mars is not far from Venus in line of sight in the sky. They're both in the constellation of Leo right now, chart to follow in a moment. Mars, however, is not at its best. Mars is a long way away. It's on the other side of the orbit, and it's magnitude 1.75. So it is dimmer than Regulus. It's not even the brightest star in the object in the constellation it's in, and tiny in your telescope, 4 arc seconds. Jupiter is very, very bright, but it isn't going to be rising until 1:19 in the morning and doesn't transit and get to its highest until 8 a.m., of course, when it's broad daylight. So morning object, it's not really ideal unless you want to get up very early. Saturn also is really a morning object. It rises by 10:22 in Aquarius, but it doesn't reach its highest until just about 4 o'clock in the morning. So Saturn's always gorgeous, but you might want to wait till it's up at a more respectable hour. Uranus in Aries is not too far from Jupiter. It's 11 degrees east of it. It's up a little bit before 2 in the morning. So again, you're going to have to wait a while until it's up at its highest. And I don't think it even reaches transit in darkness right now. Neptune does barely transit before the sun is up, but rises about 11:20. I don't normally mention Pluto, but here's Pluto, transit 1:28 a.m. So if you are a Pluto fan, you'd like to check it out. It's in Sagittarius. We're going to talk about Sagittarius tonight. This is a chart showing the constellation of Leo with Venus blazing away, Regulus and Mars. This was for the 9th. They've actually moved a little bit since then. Here is the 9 o'clock view of the sky. You can see Mars, Venus, and Mercury called out in the west. Some people have asked, why is east and west squished toward the top on this? This is a planispheric projection, like those things you used to rotate around. Even though I built a computer model of this, the reason I use these for the WhatsApps is I actually just rotate the thing in the computer exactly like the old planispheres we all grew up with. It's very convenient. So they are actually in the west. 9 o'clock is normally a very good hour for stargazing, but this time of year, remember, the sun didn't even get down until 8 o'clock-ish. And that means that the sky would still be pretty light at this hour. We're going to have to wait a while and let the sun get properly down. That means a little bit later hour for you guys. I'm actually going to do the What's Up chart for midnight this month, to give the sky time to get properly dark. Of course, the brilliant arc of the glowing Milky Way we all see so well here from Los Angeles and Orange counties. Hey, there could always be an earthquake. I mean, you know, it can happen. If the power grid blows, run out. It'll be a great observing session. This is a time of year where the overhead area is dominated by the triangle of the bright stars, Vega, Deneb, and Altair, and 3 constellations we see in the summer, of course, known as the summer triangle. I will point out, you can see Saturn rose about an hour and a half before this view, and it's visible in the east, rising there. Now, the Milky Way flowing through the summer triangle, this is incredible area of the sky. You may notice 1 or 2 stars in this picture. They can be discerned if you carefully look for them. Holy cats. Wow, what an amazing area of the sky this is, with the dark dust clouds and everything else. I love this area. And normally this is what I talk about in the What's Up. But this time I'm actually going to follow the Milky Way down to Sagittarius in the southern horizon. I ignore it more than I should. The Sagittarius region is, of course, home to the center of our galaxy. This is where the Milky Way actually swells the greatest in size, and there is a very bright area of a glow there in the Milky Way, marking the direction of the galactic center. So this is not just a single thing to look at. It's a lot of things and a lot of constellations in this area. And we're going to actually take a brief tour through a few of these. That wasn't actually, at first, I thought that was the music from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood starting. And I was picturing the lawyers getting ready to sue me. In fact, that is the longest I'm allowed to show that slide before legal action is triggered. Sagittarius here, looking at a chart. I love the fact this comes from the International Astronomical Union. And notice the way they draw Sagittarius there. It's a teapot. It's time to give up on the Centaur Archer thing. I get the fact that that's, in terms of classical star charts, that's what it's supposed to be. But for all of us, it really is a teapot. It really does look like a teapot. So I recommend it as that. And you'll notice just up above it, they even drew in the other little thing people will draw in the Sagittarius stars, which is the spoon, right? For the sugar that goes in the tea. No joke. They actually, that's the spoon. So I'm amazed they did that, but it's very nice to see. The things I like to look at in this constellation are especially in yellow, the star clusters. There are a lot of them there. And because you got this teapot pattern to find them by, you can hunt them down very easily. The circles with a cross in them are globular star clusters. Those are the ones that look like spilled salt. They are incredible, dense, rich clusters. And then you have with dashed lines around the yellow circle, those are the open star clusters with fewer, but still some of these are beautiful collection stars. With green, you'll notice there's some green squares. Those are nebulae, gas clouds, and dust floating in outer space. They are absolutely gorgeous. Pictures of a few to follow. Like this. These astrophotographers are so good these days, they're putting space artists out of business. This is just amazing. This is the Lagoon Nebula at the bottom center, and the Trifid Nebula, M20, on the upper right. But this photograph is deep enough that you can actually see the extended nebulosity all through the region. The brightest parts that we see are actually just the brightest portions of a much, much larger complex, about 5,000 light years away in the neighboring spiral arm. This I have PTSD every time I see this picture. The Trifid Nebula, it's gorgeous. Yes, of course, beautiful. The blue being lit up dust and the ionized hydrogen glowing that pink color. Yes, the reason that this one always gets me is that one episode of the old Star Trek TV series, right? And they have some guy who's freaking out in an interdimensional warp or whatever. And they thought the best way to explain this in 1968 or whatever it was zooming in and out on a picture of the Trifid Nebula coming at you away, at you away. It's horrifyingly annoying. But it is a beautiful nebula. I just don't want to see it like that. This picture is the nebula M17, known as the Swan or the Omega Nebula, in the top part of Sagittarius, a little bit farther away from the teapot. Beautiful one. Now, the globulars, only going to show you pictures of two, showing some restraint. Globular cluster M22 is right off the top of the teapot. It's easy to find. And yes, with a good pair of binoculars, if you live in a fairly less light polluted area of Orange County, yeah, you definitely see this as a hazy spot through a telescope. It's gorgeous. Now, this is the star attraction, so to speak, but there are lots of other ones, and they're all different. You'd figure that these would all be the same, but they're not. M55 here, this is zoomed in a little bit, is about the same size in your telescope as M22, but it's dimmer. It's like a ghostly version of it, even though it's the same size. It just has dimmer stars in it. So M55 in Sagittarius is an example of the variation you get in these. All of them are celestial jewelry that need to be hunted down and stolen, of course. Just kidding. I like to do exotic stuff. Next to Sagittarius, I said we'd look at the neighborhood. There are a few constellations people don't go to. One of the reasons, for example, with Corona Australis, there's almost nothing there. They have one stoplight, gas station. That's about it. Okay, you blow right through it. There are very, very few objects. You can see there is actually a globular star cluster down there. And if you drop by with your telescope, they'll be very glad to see you because they really do not get visitors very often. So Corona Australis is down there. Telescopium, you'd figure it'd be a big deal constellation. Sorry, no, it's just barely a constellation. It is an official one, and it's right down below Corona Australis. The black line that you see there is the edge of the Earth. From here, you're looking so far south, that is the theoretical flat horizon if you're looking at the ocean. If you have gone this far in the hobby that you want to hunt down a constellation this dim, which can only be 3/4 seen above the theoretical horizon, you have gone too far in the hobby. It's time to stop. I'll show you even worse ones. For example, Ara is just a neighbor of Sagittarius as well, and only half the constellation ever comes up. But every once in a while, I'll give you a challenge, and somebody will do this, Bill, looking at you in particular. One time I mouthed off during one of these and said, I wonder if anybody could capture detail on one of Jupiter's moons, visible detail. And to my satisfaction, you certainly did with Ganymede. I remember that. So since we have a competitive organization here, the globular star cluster NGC 6397 is beautiful, but it is only 1.8 degrees above the theoretical edge of the Earth. Yes. From Orange County. But of course, it's got to be flat, a flat area of Orange County. I did not take elevation into account. Oh, okay. Yeah, Bill. Bill says that, yeah, you can see it with a camera. You've done this? There's no point in even making these challenges. How hard can it? If you can image something through the body of the Earth, through the Earth's core, out the other side. That is amazing to me that you can actually see that. And it does show people do this. They love hunting in the unexpected corners. Congratulations and thank you for telling me that. That's a lot of fun. This is a big deal constellation right next door to Sagittarius. My favorite constellation of Scorpius with a bright star, Antares. It does actually look like a curving scorpion stinger and all that. Love it. I will just mention the star cluster M7 in the tail of the scorpion. A wonderful thing to look for. Serpens cauda, the tail of the serpent. Normally you wouldn't pay much attention. It's a pretty small constellation, but M16 in yellow there, marked as a star cluster, is also a nebula. It is so used to getting visitors. It is like the Kardashians of the sky. Now, yes, it's that one, the pillars of creation and so forth, the Eagle Nebula. It is a beautiful nebula, but it's hard to see the nebula apart from the city. It looks more like a star cluster. Scutum Sobieski is another example. The shield is what that is for. M11, as an example, is one of my things I like to hunt down. There are a few stars in this beautiful open star cluster. So there's a few different things to hunt down in the area of the teapot. If you want to drop by for tea, you now know some of the neighbors you're going to have. By 5 o'clock, Sagittarius is down. The summer triangle has rotated around to the west and is setting. Saturn is high and so forth. Jupiter is the bright object just below Aries on your chart there. And you can see a thin crescent moon, which is where it is tonight. After all of that excitement, having dropped by Sagittarius and giving me a chance to get over my stage fright, thank you very much for that. I will now turn over the reins of power, and thank you for being patient with an old man learning to do this again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris, for a great presentation in person. Can you guys hear me on the auditorium? Okay. Are you go there? Sam, can you all guys hear me in the person? Okay. Okay, so let me get started. My name is Reza, and I'm the Vice President of the club. I too would like to welcome you to the general meeting of the Orange County Astronomers on July 14th, 2023. Our speaker at this meeting is one of the most accomplished planetary imagers. He has a BS in physics and has been an amateur astronomer since 1986, with many contributions to the professional community discovering or confirming changes to Jupiter and Saturn. Asteroid 3100 Christopher Go has been named in his honor, and in 2008 he received the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers Walter Haas Award. He has flown all the way from Cebu, Philippines, to tell us some of the secrets of his work. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Christopher Go. Chris.
Well, it's great to be here. Can you see it? Let's see.
Not yet.
Have I shared the presentation?
Not yet.
Wait a sec. Yeah. I still get confused. Okay, here we go. This is gonna be a little complicated because I'll be anyway. Let's see how it goes. Can you see it
Okay,
now?
we have the presentation all good here online.
Okay. So we're gonna be shifting from my PowerPoint presentation to actual software, where I'm gonna demonstrate how planetary software processing is done. Anyway, I'm gonna talk about modern planetary imaging. So as you know, planetary imaging is one of the hobbies that you can do anywhere, even in the middle of LA. You don't have to worry about light pollution because all the planets are very bright. One thing nice about the coming years is that the planets are getting higher after how much? About 5 or 6 years of hibernation in the southern hemisphere, or even more for Saturn. So Jupiter is going to be very high here. in the coming months. And Saturn is slowly getting higher and should improve. Now, basically, one big problem about planetary imaging is our atmosphere. And of course, the best way is to remove the atmosphere, but it has also deadly consequences for all of us. So we have some methods of fighting the atmosphere. The first, of course, is launching space telescopes. Of course, that's way beyond our budget. And the other is adaptive optics. Adaptive optics is quite interesting. In fact, a few years ago, there's this guy from San Diego who used to sell adaptive optics for amateurs. I wonder if you remember Don Burns. I think was it in the 90s that he started selling those adaptive optics? Of course, whenever I'm in San Diego, I meet this guy, and right now he says a system for adaptive optics for amateurs. You will first need a 1 meter telescope and probably his device, which would cost probably $50,000 to $100,000. Again, this is way beyond our budget. So what we're doing now is lucky imaging. Now, lucky imaging was first started by some professional astronomers in Hawaii, but it never got developed until I think I would say 20 years ago, exactly 20 years ago this year, that I think 2021 or 2022. Oh no, 2001 or 2002, when we started doing lucky imaging. Now, lucky imaging is basically capturing a video of the planets. Now we know that a video is basically a group of thousands of images, and what we do is we capture it using before, when we started, we used to use a webcam, and of course right now we have dedicated planetary cams from different companies. But even as early as 10 years ago, we had to buy our cameras from either security cameras or the webcam that we used. Then of course we have a software that will basically process. What the software does is to choose the bad and separate it from the good, and basically keep the good. So separate the bad frames and basically stack it. Now, of course, this advancement also went hand in hand with some advancement in computer technology. I remember a few years ago, having a video device would cost an arm and a leg, sometimes a head. Now, when the revolution came, when webcam appeared, you have video devices for less than $100. And this happened about over 20 years ago when we started having that. And of course, the advancement of computer hardware. When I started using computers, I was so proud because I was able to have a 300 baud modem. Remember that time? So we have those serial ports, parallel ports. So yeah, those times were good times. Now, these ports can't handle gigabytes of data. Now we have USB 3.0 or 3.1 or 2 or what is the latest now? 3? So we have these advanced computer interface, and of course, processing power. Actually, when you process these videos, you need powerful computers like 6 to 8 cores running at 4 or 5 gigahertz just to be able to process this at a same amount of time. And of course, one of the most important development is the software side, I really appreciate these guys who create this software, because they spend a lot of time and they sell it for free, or they give it away for free, like software like fire capture, which we use to control our cameras, and even it has an option to control your telescope, filter wheel, and everything. We can't forget the importance of Registax, which basically was the first software for stacking. Of course, now we use AutoStacker. So, these things just fell into place, allowing us to do planetary imaging. Without these, there will be no planetary imaging. Now, I will give a summary of what I'll be talking about. We'll talk about hardware, then the imaging workflow, and of course, imaging workflow, the preparation, image capture, image processing, post-processing, and archiving. By the way, I have a longer video of all of these. It's about, I would say, a total of almost 10 hours of video, talking more specifically about all these. This is just an introduction. And later on, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. But if you want a more comprehensive one, I made one with Woodland Hills. It's on YouTube. You can go to those pages, and I think it's a 3 or 4 video. Each one, I even include live imaging. Okay, so let's go. The right equipment, choosing the right equipment. So the first of all, which telescope should you use? Now, this is a big question. Well, it's true that the bigger the aperture, the better your image. And I think Eric here can testify after using, was it a C11 that you were using before? Yeah, now he's using a C14. Now, I would recommend a Schmidt-Cassegrain because of 2 things. Well, one, it's less expensive per aperture than most telescopes, and it's smaller, compact, easier to mount. Of course, it has long focal length. Now, one thing that very few people neglect to say about planetary imaging, you need a stable mount because you're capturing at very, very high magnifications, very high focal lengths. You know, those planets that you see, they're tiny compared to those nebulas that we're talking, that were, they spoke about. You have nebulas that are 2 or 3 degrees. Now, in planets, you're talking about arc seconds. Okay, so you can see that Jupiter image there. It's huge. Yeah, it's huge, but that's a few arc seconds in size. Jupiter, which is I think the largest planet. I think sometimes Venus gets bigger, but Jupiter at peak is only 50 arc seconds, and the moon is half a degree. So you can see that the difference in size. So the larger the aperture, of course, the bigger the resolution. But of course, it all depends on your local condition. In some cases, even if you have the large aperture, what you can do is you can use shorter focal lengths, and because of how much light you get, you can capture more data. So basically, what we're doing with Lucky Imaging is that we're getting as much data as possible so that we can freeze those rare moments when the atmosphere is stable, and basically get those data and give you a good image. Now, one of the first questions people ask me, which is better, monochrome or color? I used to say that you have to go monochrome, but the past few years, I've been using color, and the reason is because color is actually simpler. First of all, to set up, to process, you don't need filter wheels. Or, by the way, when I use color, I still use filter wheels, but it's easier because the reason why I need filter wheels, I use my color cam to capture infrared wavelengths, UV wavelengths, which are not which you need to study more on Jupiter or Saturn. But processing, you don't have to go through the RGB, getting things together. These are the advantages of a color cam, and I would recommend using a color cam for all beginners. It's much easier to use. The problem with color cam is that the planets, when they're low in the sky, at least below 60 degrees, you have a problem called atmospheric dispersion, which means that the 3 colors RGB will not focus on the same plane. Have you tried looking at the planet when it's low in the sky, and you'll see one side is blue and one side is red? Yeah, that's atmospheric dispersion. And well, the easiest way around it is to use a monochrome cam because you don't have that problem. For color cam, there is a way to fix that. It's called an atmospheric dispersion corrector. Now, for me, I have no I don't have any back experience on atmospheric dispersion because back home, usually the planets are very high. It's only low during early in the season, but during that time, I just use monochrome cam. Now, what is the advantage of the monochrome cam? Well, the problem with the color cam is that for each pixel, you actually have 4 filters there. And those 4 filters, it's RGB. It's always centered on G, the color cam, because it's the most sensitive to our eye. So you tend to lose some resolution if you use a color cam compared to a monochrome cam. But the resolution of the monochrome cam is really, really much higher than if you use. But that's theoretical. But in practice, I mean, when you capture so much data, and especially depending on the condition, especially if you have just average condition, it doesn't really matter that much. I mean, visually, the difference isn't that great. There might be slight, the monochrome cam might be slightly better, but in terms of data that can be seen scientifically, most of the time it doesn't really matter. So this is a sample of an image of Jupiter using a color cam, and it's quite good. So with that resolution, you practically see everything that's needed to be there. Later on, I'll explain because I tend to every year when OPAL uses Hubble to image the planets, I try to do a comparison to make sure that what I'm capturing is real. And this is something very important. There's a problem, especially lately, where, in fact, it became a controversy a few months ago, or was it last year, where somebody created a wonderful image of Saturn that was basically faked. So what he did was he took one part of Saturn, which was nice, and he projected it around. So he made basically a work of art and tried to pass it as a real thing. Now, it's kind of upsetting for me because a lot of the images, or basically most of the images which amateur planetary imagers capture, are used by professional astronomers. And we submit it to ALPO, or in some cases there's an organization in Spain, in Bilbao, that gets all the amateur data and is used by professionals to help us understand the planets. Planetary imaging might sound like something like a hobby for us, but I think Eric can attest. We have a group called HST Jupiter Group, where I gather some of the best imagers or consistent imagers all over the world, and our images are really used by professionals. And you know why? You talk about Hubble, you talk about these telescopes. When you use Hubble Space Telescope, every year they receive 5,000 proposals. Of the 5,000, only 150 to 200 are accepted. And for planetary, you cannot have let's say Keck or Gemini observe Jupiter every night. That's not possible. In the pecking order of astronomy, planetary science is on the bottom. So in a sense, they rely on amateur astronomers to get most of their data. And if you notice lately, amateurs have been able to capture very high quality images. In fact, almost at par as what during the time the early pioneers were having. So what's the best camera right now? Over the years, I've been using different cameras. Right now, I don't know how long this will last. It's the Starvis 2. The chips using the Starvis 2 of Sony. Now, right now I'm using the QHY 678 monochrome camera and also color camera. I'm actually using both color and monochrome of the same. Now, before this camera, it was always about QE, quantum efficiency. I think those of you guys imaging on CCD, CMOS, higher quantum efficiency, the better. Now, with the latest Starvis 2, another another thing come into play, and this is noise. Now, remember before the CCDs, they were very low noise. I mean, that's something that the CMOS have just basically achieved right now with Starvis 2. I think many people would say, even with the CCD having low quantum efficiency, it really had much lesser noise than the CMOS that we're having. But this changed with Starvis 2. To give you an idea, before I was using the 290 cam, to image Saturn, it takes me 1 hour to get basically a smooth image. Now, it only takes me 18 minutes. Now, the QE of the difference between the 290 and the 678 is probably around 20%. So that doesn't account the QE of the 678 is probably 20% higher, but it's the low noise that's so what does this mean? That it will take you less time to capture, to get the best image. It's not a problem for you guys here because sunny California, before it was only when I come here that it would rain. Back home I never have clear skies like this that you're having here in California. So we need short amount of time to image. So this is the advantage of this camera right now. So other important accessories that you need, Barlow's. I wonder if how many of you have started with film? I think a lot of you. We all, remember we used to breathe hydrogen gas. We hyper our film. And I could never forget the term reciprocity failure, which is something forgotten now. Now, before when we were doing planetary imaging, I remember in the 80s, 90s, when we used eyepiece projection. I wonder if any of you guys remember that. Yeah, that was what we did a long time ago. Now, with these new chips, all we need is a Barlow to achieve the high magnification. No more complex. In fact, I still have my eyepiece projection kit back home. I just don't. Actually, I recommissioned it to other stuff, but no, that's what we used to do. If you're doing monochrome, you need a motorized filter wheel and of course RGB filters. If you want to go monochrome, I would recommend the filters to use. Chroma, I think, would be the best. Bader is also good. Now, what you need to do is to look at the graph of the filter, make sure it's triangles and with very high transmission. The reason why triangles are better is because it's really pure RGB. I have seen some filters, I don't want to name names, that they were like pyramids. And what happened is that there's a huge overlap, so much so that the red filter look orange. So you're not going to get, you're going to get weird planetary colors if you use these type of filters. So you just check the filter graph before getting it. Some important filters for imaging, especially Jupiter, is the methane band. It's a fairly expensive filter. Before it was only Custom Scientific who were selling this, and they were selling it at I think $600 per filter. I think Chroma is selling it at $300, and some others are also selling it at a lesser price. Now you have to be careful because there are two types of methane band. The first is the bandwidth is wider, 18 nanometers. This is Chroma has 18 nanometers. Some of the filters, especially the filters that's being sold from China, have very small bandwidth. And I did some tests. It's better just to go for the higher bandwidth. You get higher resolution, more details. One thing that you will need is a flip mirror. Now, I know Chris earlier said that when you took planets at 3 a.m., it's not worth it. Yeah, well, we planetary imagers, we wake up at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Sleep is not a concern for us. We image at we work on planetary time. So we wake up at 3, 4, wherever the planets is best imaged. During the start of the season, we don't care if the planet is only 20 degrees, just to get the data there, because sometimes exciting things happen during that time. You get an outbreak or something new, probably an asteroid hitting Jupiter, or a new feature coming up, or a storm revival, or whatever. It's always good, one of the dedicated imager I've known is Paul Maxon, who lives here in Arizona. He doesn't have the best image, but my goodness, he image always. Of course, he's retired. Unlike me, I have a day job. And if I spend too much time in imaging, my wife will not be very happy. So I have limited time, but I know some people who are really dedicated. They image, they have images every day. So yeah, those data are very important for professionals. One accessory is the flip mirror, and when you wake up at 3 a.m., trying to find a planet without a flip mirror is gonna drive you insane. Your brain is not 100%, and when you look, oh, the planet's not there. You skim around, spend 20 minutes, and the clouds covering the sky. It can get frustrating. So having a flip mirror, you see the planet, you center it, and bang, it's there. So it makes life more easy. Of course, having a motorized focuser, a Crayford focuser for speed Cassegrain is also very helpful. It'll make things easier to focus. And one accessory that I would recommend, especially for those who have portable setups and who set up on concrete, is the vibration suppression pods. These are cheap accessories, but my goodness, they actually work. I use an AP900 on a balcony. Before those suppression pods, if somebody were to walk anywhere in my house, the whole thing would just shake and shake. With the suppression pods, it cut by probably about 300%, a lot lower. So basically, it basically converts high frequency vibration to low frequency vibration. Now, low frequency, you can basically stack that out. So yeah, you need these accessories. Next, preparation before imaging. Well, the first thing you should do is, especially now for us, Eric, it's not a problem. We live close to the equator. We don't have jet stream. But you guys, especially during winter, you're going to have very bad jet stream. Go to that site, you'll have the live jet stream. In fact, if you're under the jet stream, you might as well go back to sleep. It's not worth imaging planets. You can see that, yeah, it covers a lot of, during summer, the jet stream moves north. So it's not a problem here in California. But when fall comes, that's when the jet stream will drop down, and that's where you're going to have some problems. So just copy that website or take a picture of that, and yeah, you can get the live jet stream info there. You all got it? Now, it's important to have a good location. Of course, the best would be somewhere in Curacao, where you have a small island in the middle of the ocean, and you're away from the jet stream. Then you have the laminar flow, which gives good seeing. But even me, I don't have perfect seeing. Sometimes we have a mountain range between our islands. So, but there are other small things that you have to take care of, especially when you're imaging on concrete. The heat is going to be a problem. In fact, what I do is that since I image on a veranda, I actually hose down the ground at around 4 o'clock in the afternoon just to cool it. So by the time I would image around 8 or 9, everything would be okay. Stay away from heat sources. In our case, it's air conditioning. I don't know what you have. I think you also have air conditioning here, and also chimneys where you have when during winter you have heaters. Just stay away from those. That will improve a lot on your seeing. Now, a lot of people might complain, oh, it's about bad seeing. one of the biggest problem with planetary imaging is when your telescope is not cooled enough. Bigger telescope require longer times to cool down. My C14 would, without the fan, would take at least about 3 to 4 hours to cool. But with a fan, probably about 1 hour. So this is one accessory that you need to, well, that will help you reduce the time of cooling your OTA. If you don't cool your OTA, what you're gonna see is jelly bean. So the planet will just be wiggling there. You can't see anything. In fact, if I didn't cool my telescope, there's no point in imaging. You really won't get anything. Finally, one of the things that you have to do is to collimate your OTA. It is a very, very important step. And when you collimate, you have to collimate with the camera on camera. Because one problem is when you have the flip mirror, everything, the Barlow, the filter wheel, it's gonna shift a little bit on the collimation of your telescope because of the weight of your imaging system. So you need to collimate on camera. What I normally do is I would point my Schmidt-Cassegrain on a star about 70 degrees or above the horizon and use that star to collimate. I would usually use infrared filter, especially when seeing is not very good. I would use other filters if seeing is good, but if it's bad, I would use infrared. And what you would do is you do out focus a little bit just before it would focus. And basically, this is the final collimation. Just do a little out focus. And what you would do is make sure that the ring is evenly illuminated. And that's when you get the best collimation. It takes time. It takes me about half an hour to do collimation, especially when I move my telescope and the whole thing gets whacked. It takes time. One accessory I think you're familiar with, which will help collimation, is Bob's knobs. The reason why I got Bob's knobs was the first time I was collimating my Celestron and I stabbed the Phillips screwdriver straight to the corrector. It was like, oh, it's quite painful. I said, no, this is not gonna work. I'm gonna buy Bob's knobs. So having Bob's knobs, just using your finger to change the position of the secondary gives you a lot more relief than using a screwdriver. Last.
Sorry, Chris, looks like we've lost your voice. Could it be that the microphone is out of batteries? Okay, so thank you for waiting while we fix the microphone issue.
So what happened?
Okay, good.
Okay, we ran out of battery, so let's go back. Oh, okay. Okay. Where was I? Okay. Okay. So, sorry, we just,
Okay.
okay, we got
Yeah,
the mic,
it's
mic fixed.
we see the video with the presentation, not in the presentation mode though.
Huh?
Um,
It's here. You're not seeing presentation mode?
no, it's
Okay.
just the PowerPoint controls.
Okay. Stop share. Let's stop share. Share. How's everything now?
Perfect. Now it's all good on the online side.
Okay. So having a mirror lock would be very helpful because especially with larger apertures, you tend to have a mirror sag as it moves around the sky. Normally, the one that comes with Celestron are very short bolts. So what I do is remove it and buy longer bolts just to hold onto the mirror to prevent it from sagging. Now, lastly, for preparation, you need to use wind pulse just to check what you're gonna see, whether you'll see the great red spot is there for Jupiter, or if there's a moon transiting, or a few years ago there were mutual events on the moons which are very rare. So uh if you don't check what's going on, you might miss some important events. And this thing is crazy because one time last year I wasn't checking, I just imaged Saturn, and I didn't know that there was an Iapetus transit. Now the transit of Iapetus is very, very rare. It comes in groups. Example, last year there were 3. Then after that, the next one will be 2030 plus 36 or 37. Then after that, it'll be 2052. So it was something very rare. But I was lucky to catch it. But had I checked earlier, I would have known. But sometimes you just get lucky. So it's good to check. This is a freeware WinJu post. You can download it, and yeah, it's one of the very important software because
Sorry, looks like we lost your voice again. No.
oh, hello.
Okay, good.
Does that have power? Battery? Okay. Anyway, we'll go to image processing, image capture. Now, the software that we use for image capture is Fire Capture, and it's a freeware. You can download it anytime. Now, one thing about Fire Capture is it's a bit quirky, so I actually use different versions of Fire Capture for each of the camera that I have. But when you're using Fire Capture, it's important to first of all check this one with the WinJupos file naming convention, because right now it's what is used by professional astronomers is the standard. Yeah, we're having some problems with the receiver. Oh, okay. Well, Fire Capture is much better for controlling planetary imaging than SharpCap. One thing I don't like about SharpCap, a lot of the functions that I need, like changing filters, is not, in Fire Capture, it's there right in front of you. While in SharpCap, you have to dig around to find it. And basically, also the capture and controls are much easier with Fire Capture. And there's other things that Fire Capture can do, like it can orchestrate. Uh, is that the right term? But you can have a script of, let's say, doing 10 RGBs, or you want to capture with this filter. You can program it to do different things at different exposure times and everything. So it's easier to control. There's a lot of more functions in fire capture than in sharp cap. I've done sharp cap, and it's just I gave up. I just fire capture is a lot better. Although I have to admit, sharp cap is more stable. It's a lot more stable. Now, basically, when you're imaging, it's about the control of gain and exposure time. And one thing that people always, the first thing they ask me, what are your settings? And I have to be honest, it's just like asking me, what gear do you use when you're driving your car? Because I don't, it's, every time I have a new system, I always try to find what setting works best. So unless you have the exactly the same setup as mine, exactly the same sky condition as mine, then you can use my settings. But if it's not, even in my case, if it's lower transparency, it's cloudy, or the seeing is not good, I have to change the settings. So it's hard to say this, but many times you have to do it trial and error. And for some people, they think it's, there has to be a setting that's universal. It's like saying you just drive first gear. Yeah. So no, but there is something that that will help you, and this is the histogram. So everything is guided by the histogram. Later on, I will talk about each planet and about this histogram, because different planets have different histogram settings. Now, for a color camera, it's quite a little more complicated than the monochrome. In fact, one of the first thing, I haven't used a color cam for quite some time. Since I used a color cam from 2003 to I think 2004. Then from that time on, I was using a monochrome cam until 3 years ago. And one thing funny was that the first time I saw a color cam, the output was monochrome. I was like, is something wrong with my camera? Then, I've already forgotten about the debayer thing, and these things that you have to capture in RAW mode. First of all, before, when we were using the webcam, we were capturing straight in color mode. Right now, it's recommended that you capture in RAW mode and you debayer afterwards when you're processing. So this is a little complication that you need. And another thing is that the first time you see that image and you debayer it on the camera, it's green. And it's true because of I spoke to you earlier that each of these is RGB. So you have to adjust in fire capture. There is a way to adjust. You just go to the other settings, more settings, and there's the W red, W green, W blue. What I would recommend is don't touch the green, just adjust the red and the blue until you get a pleasing color. There's no automatic white balance, unfortunately. And lastly, you do the debayer after stacking, when you are stacking. So when you go to auto stacker, there's a debayer there. So once you load the image, it's gonna be monochrome. Then when you go to debayer, there are 3 options there. Try to get the option where Jupiter looks normal. You'll understand that when you're processing. Now, here are some general secrets on capture. Of course, try to find the sweet spot of your imaging system. This is something difficult, but you have to do trial and error. Now, this is my rule. If seeing is good, I try to use lower frame rates, and which means I can get lower gain. But when seeing is bad, then I try to get things faster, higher frame rates, and of course, higher gain. Of course, your image is gonna get noisy, but the important thing is that you capture a lot. You capture a lot of images because later on we're going to derotate it and basically get a good image. So it's always the give and take on that, and spend time to focus. You know, when seeing is good, it's very easy to focus. It takes just a few seconds. But when seeing is bad, I would call my method jogging. No, I know that you know, you have this focusing aids that you need. I've tried all those, doesn't work. So what is jogging? You go in focus, count the steps, you go out focus, and basically try to find the center point. It worked for me many times. One thing which would help is, especially when you're imaging Jupiter, try to get to one of the moons and focus that moon. It'll make things a lot easier. For Saturn, try to observe the rings. When you see the Cassini division, try to play with that until you get the best. Now, of course, later on, you need to capture a lot of data because I'm gonna introduce you to derotation. We don't have time to do sampling on that, but I'll do a little bit later on. But you know, just capture a lot of data. Now, here are the secrets for Jupiter. Now, each planet has different ways of capturing it. Now, the histogram level has to be high, close to 100%, but below 100% without going over. So I would normally use 89 to 95%, depending on how jumpy your camera is. Especially with the Jupiter is a fast rotating planet with a lot of fine details. So we keep the integration time as low as possible. I think for C14, you can go as high as 45 seconds. I've heard Anthony using 1 minute. So in my case, I use 30 seconds for Jupiter. For Saturn, I use, later on we'll talk about Saturn, but for Jupiter, I use 30 seconds. So yeah, you just go trial and error, find out which is best. Now, for methane band, methane band is very tricky because it's a narrow band filter. But what is it? Why is methane band so important? It shows high altitude features on Jupiter. And if there's an eruption or what we call an outbreak, these are more visible in methane band. Now, taking methane band is just like taking a deep sky image. So when you're using very high gain, slow exposure times or longer exposure times, what you will see is you see dark hot pixels. So when you're capturing methane band, you have to take dark frames. Now, one thing nice about methane band, we don't really try to blow up the image. So in my case, I spent 2 minutes to capture my methane band. Now, in some cameras like the 462, the 678, you don't need to bin because it's sensitive. It's very high sensitivity on the near infrared. So you actually get incredible resolution with these cameras. But with older cameras with low IR sensitivity, you need to bin. Now, when you're taking dark frames, I recommend that the dark frame be 5 frames. I tried 1 frame and 10 frame. The sweet spot is 5. So you take 5 frames and you stack it using auto stacker. Then yeah, you'll be able to get better dark frame. Yes, you have a question? Yeah, we'll go to there. Okay. Actually, next up is Saturn. Okay. If you have any questions, you can basically raise your hands at any time as we go along. So here we come, Saturn. Saturn is low surface brightness, which means you need higher gain. And yeah, I actually use variable frame rates for Saturn. Normally red would be about probably 90 frames per second, green would be 80, and blue will be 60. Now, the histogram is much lower than Jupiter. In fact, I would recommend around 85. This is probably 80 to 90, but 80 to 85. And the reason is because if your histogram is too high, the equatorial level will burn out. So yeah, you'll get more details with lower histogram. And Saturn is a planet that you will really need to use the rotation because it is grainy, very grainy. Okay, for Mars, is actually the easiest planet to capture. In many cases, you don't even need the rotation because it's very high surface brightness. Again, the histogram level of Mars, especially if it has a polar cap, I tend to lower it to around 80 to 85%. And if there's no polar cap, as high as 90. But the blue, I would keep it around 80, 85. One thing nice about Mars, it rotates slower. So you can use about 4 minutes per channel. It's not a problem. And make sure that the filters you use have a UV IR block, because there was one time that I was using a filter and it didn't have UV IR block. I had weird colors of Mars. Okay, so next. So we go to image processing. Now, my philosophy of image processing, honestly, is not to get the best image, but to process it as fast as possible so I can get on with my life. I know some people who do a lot of extra things to get the very last ounce of image detail. Yeah, my problem is I have a family, I have work, so I have a finite amount of time where I can do processing. So I have to do it as fast as possible before my wife complains. Okay, so we need to live our life. So for processing, basically the initial software that you're going to use is AutoStacker. No, AutoStacker is very easy to use. No, this is where things get complicated. Anyway, we'll just talk about this for a while. Then I'm going to do a live demo on how this is done. AutoStacker is actually very easy to use. Later on, I'm going to demo it. All you need to do is to load the file, choose the alignment points, how many alignment points. Now, many people are asking me, what size of alignment points should you use? Should you use the smallest alignment point or alignment box? No, I would not recommend that because it's gonna create a weird, when it stacks back, it creates a lot of artifacts. I would recommend a fairly large, but box size. Then of course, some things that you have to anyway, let's talk about this a little later because I need to demo it to you so you'll see what's going on. Switching to the AutoStacker screen, and this screen is a bit complicated. So we'll just go through this, and the next one is after stacking. Yeah. I'm using the latest one. What was the latest one? 3, right? Yeah, AutoStacker 3. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, we'll talk about AutoStacker because it's easier to demo it than this slides. So something that's very important is Registack wavelets. You need the right wavelet settings to get a good image. I think this is the time we're gonna I'm gonna break away from his. Okay, and share screen. Okay. Yeah. What? No. Fire capture is just image capture. So we're gonna go AutoStacker is just for stacking. Okay. So this is AutoStacker. Can you see it? Oh, wait. Okay. Okay. Oh, what's wrong? Do I have to stop this? I have to stop this. Pause this. Or uh, close this. Okay. Okay, here you go. So let's open a file. So this is a sample Jupiter image. So what you would do is all here you can see you use a planet, then dynamic background and Laplace, then local, auto size there. And here in my case, because my seeing is so good, I use 1.5 drizzling. You may or may not use it. It depends. This is something important. Normalized stack. Now, I would place it at 70%. If you place it 100%, yeah, sometimes the image gets too burned, too bright. Some of the lower contrast gets burned out. So I find 70% as a magic spot. Then how many percent should you stack? It depends on your seeing. If your seeing is good, you can go as high as 80, 70, even sometimes 90%. If your seeing is bad, you can go as 40, as low as 40, 30, or 50. The next thing you do is place AP on grid. So it's there. Then press stack. That's it. It's quite simple. You can even do batch processing where you select all the files and it'll basically process everything for you. So in many cases before, this is what I would do. Process everything, then stack, go to sleep. And wake up, everything's ready. Now, processing this takes quite some time. It needs a lot of processing time. So that's why you can actually do this while you're sleeping. Now, for Registax. Now, this wavelet thing is really very. Now, after stacking, this is how the image would look like. So this is Jupiter after stacking. Now, when you apply wavelets, this is what happens. Boom. Night and day. Night and day. So it's having the right settings is very important. You cannot over sharpen. You cannot if you don't get it right, you get a blurry image or you get an over processed image. So again, you can use that as that might not work for your case. You will have to do trial and error to get your best settings. So there's really nothing magic about this. It's just patience of trying to find the right settings. Here's another one for Saturn. Okay. So you can see Saturn like that, then boom. So this is the difference. This is before and after. So you can see how important it is to have the correct wavelet settings. This is monochrome. This was taken when Saturn was around 60 degrees. This was taken a few weeks ago. Yeah. Well, what's going to happen is that if you're stacking only 40%, your result will be very grainy. And compared to 80%. But of course, these are good data because if you're, example, you have bad seeing and you would stack 80%, your image is going to be blurry. So the quality of your image isn't going to be that great. Yeah. So this is independent of stacking. No, wavelets. Wavelets is just for sharpening. It's your initial sharpening. Okay, let's go back to this one. So basically, I demonstrated the wavelets to you. Then the next image processing when you're using monochrome is to basically put it together, the RGB using Photoshop. Let's demo it. Or in Photoshop, what I would do is open B G R. I don't know why. This is how Photoshop works. So these are this is the blue, this is the green, and this is the red. So what you would do first is to after you save it in Registax, it's normally RGB, so you have to convert it to grayscale. Then once you have the grayscale, let me move this because you go here, drop down, merge channels, then RGB. Now, if you open your file beginning with B, G, and R, you'll notice that everything is set here RGB. So you don't have to do anything here. Just press OK. Then you have the color image. Okay. So of course, this is aligned very well. So you have to do some realignment using this one. And we're going for R. This one you can see a little shift. So using the arrow keys, you can actually move until you get everything aligned. This is the long way to do it. There's others they're using WinJupos to do this, but sometimes the result isn't that great. For me, I still do it manually, and yeah. So you'll notice that this image of Saturn is grainy. So let's go back to the presentation. So what do we do? This is where WinJupos comes in. Now, what is WinJupos derotation? In short, it's stacking on steroids. So one problem with stacking Jupiter is that it rotates, or not just Jupiter, but all the planets, is that they rotate. Unlike deep sky objects that rotates once every how many eon or 100 million years. You have a planet that rotates once every 10 hours. So if you stack as it rotates, it's going to go crazy. So what does WinJupos do? WinJupos is basically, it takes into account the rotation of the planet, so it can stack at exactly where that feature on Jupiter moved. And it does it automatically. Now, we don't have much time to do it here, but anyway, it's two steps. First is the image measurement. I have a video of this. Again, the one I told you about. You can get a lot of details there on how this is done. And of course, after image measurement, you go to the rotation. And you can really see the difference between the single image and a derotated image. It's much, much clearer, much, we get a lot more data. Now, after the rotation, there's this final processing. It's always a battle between sharpening and noise reduction. Yeah, you can't have an image that is too grainy. When you sharpen too much, it becomes too grainy. So some tools that you use for sharpening is Registack. Of course, we have Waveless before. The next is it's not DXO. Is it DXO? Yeah, it's DXO Nix. Now, Nix, DXO Nix, they actually charge a lot of money for it. But I'm using an old version, which was during the time when Nix was owned by Google, and it's a freeware. So I think you can Google it, Google Nix, and you can try to download the free version of this, and it works very well. And for noise reduction, there's the speckle, there's the scratches, and of course, a secret weapon, Topaz Labs denoise. Now, I didn't write it here because Topaz Labs is not free, but I have to warn you, the Topaz Labs that works for amateur images or any, or for that matter, any image is not, don't use the AI. Now, the AI version has a propensity to invent features that don't exist. So please avoid using Topaz Labs AI. And one thing you can do if you purchase Topaz Labs AI, you can ask them if you can get a legacy license. And they will. They gave me a legacy license because I told them, look, from what I'm doing, I tried AI and I don't like the invented images that you were doing, that you were creating. So they gave me a license for the legacy. Now, again, I told you earlier, yes?
Chris, sorry to interrupt. If you're seeing the presenter notes, can you switch to the main window for us on the online?
Okay.
The online
Okay.
looks like you need to share the other screen.
Okay. This is no, this is it. What are you seeing? Oh yeah, you're seeing that. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's. How's it?
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. Again, you have all these tools. What is important is your image real? Now we're lucky because every year OPAL would use the Hubble Space Telescope and image Jupiter, Saturn, all the outer planets, and I get to access this because some of the guys running this are my friends, and I get the raw data, and mostly they tell me when they're gonna do it, so I can image almost at the same time. Now these two images only a difference of probably how many 1 or 2 minutes, and what I would normally do is, first of all, the Hubble image is not real color. I have a problem. In fact, I have to talk to the guys of running this. This is a narrowband RBV image. B as in blue, V as in violet. I don't know why they chose that. Well, that's what they want. You can't really argue with professionals. But this is the well, that's why there are some features there that don't really look the same as the RGB. But you can see that most of the data, you can see everything that's on the ground image or my image are in the Hubble image. So you can say that, okay, the processing that I'm doing is legit. So this is something that we have to bear in mind every time we use a new method. Whenever I use a new method, I always use this as a reference. Finally, this is a summary of what I do. This is my process summary. So basically, I start with AutoStacker, apply wavelets, RGB align, in WinGPost, do the image measurement, then derotation, then Photoshop, do the magic in Photoshop. Of course, keeping everything very real. Then for the final image, some things that are the normal convention now is, before there was a big argument whether north up or south up. The legacy groups like the BAA, the ALPO, those people who used to observe the planets using reflectors where the planets are upside down would prefer south up, because of legacy sake. The historic images are all inverted. Now the problem is we're working with professionals now. We're supporting different NASA spacecraft, and those guys in NASA would go crazy if we're using south up. We haven't seen, when you buy a globe and it's south up, you'd return it. So basically right now it's north up. One thing that's being asked of us is to place the central meridian information, and of course the time. Time is very important, date and time. Of course, you add the observer information, and if you're derotating, how long you derotate it. And the post, before you throw away or you hide your data, it's good that you run it through detect. Now, what is detect? It tries to find impacts on Jupiter. Now, about 13 years ago in June 3, I was imaging Jupiter with Anthony Wesley. Actually, Anthony Wesley was imaging in Australia. I was in Cebu, and if you notice here, boom, an asteroid hit Jupiter. So this was the first ever impact observed by anybody, live impact from Earth. Of course, we had Schumacher-Levy, but the thing about Schumacher-Levy, we never saw the impact because the impact happened on the other side. I think it was only Galileo that saw it, but they didn't really see the actual, but the remnants. In our case, here, we were able to see the first time that these impacts are not rare. In fact, after our discovery, there has been, I think, how many? 10, more than 10 discoveries of impacts. I think there's an average of 2 or 3 per year. So it's something that you have to check out. Normally, I would archive, if I have good data, I would archive them, or if there are special events, I would archive the video. But mostly I would throw them away if things are just average. Right now, I burned everything on Blu-ray. Other guys like Damian and Anthony Wesley, they store everything on hard drives. Me, I am not comfortable with hard drives. I've had enough hard drive nightmares. That I'm more happy with a Blu-ray. And finally, the goal of planetary imaging is not just to acquire beautiful images, but to capture useful scientific data. Any image can be useful. There was a few years ago, I think was it 10 years ago, when there was this huge storm that appeared in Saturn. We call it the Dragon Storm. And it was first detected by Cassini as a radio anomaly. But the first one to capture it was an amateur astronomer in Iran. His image wasn't great, but it captured the first instance of the eruption of that feature. And that was a very good scientific data. Okay, so these are the softwares that you'll be using and the websites on where you can get them. And that concludes my talk. If you have any questions. You have any questions? You said there was a question. Again, if you need more information, I have the YouTube videos that I did will give you a lot of information there. My name and Woodland Hills or Christopher Go Planetary Imaging. There's a lot. Any questions?
So, Chris, thank you very much for a great talk. Do you have any questions from in audience? We have some from the online people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just go to YouTube and type my name. Okay, online.
Okay. Any tips for aligning or sizing in wind jupos, especially Mars?
Mars is the most tricky to align. And what I do is I try to overexpose Mars to show Phobos or Deimos. That is easier said than done because many times these two moons are very close to the planet. But if you're able to capture both moons, it's easier to align with wind jupos.
Perfect, thank you. There is one other question about the resolution with which you can see rings on Saturn. The questioner wants to know if you've seen icicles on the rings of Saturn.
No. That even the Hubble cannot do that. You have to be Cassini. You have to have a spacecraft there. It's just like a lot of people are asking me, have I captured the flag of Apollo 11? Yeah.
Perfect. And yeah, there are in-person questions. Okay, sure. Oh.
Yeah, it is recorded. I think I see recording here. Yeah. Hey, Reza, people are asking when the recording will be posted.
Well, the recording will be posted immediately after on our YouTube channel, the link to which you could find at the bottom of our website. So if people go at ocastronomers.org, they would see at the footer of the website, they will see a link to the YouTube channel, and you would be able to find this recording right after we end it at the live section of the YouTube channel. Now, there is one other question. What version of Auto Stackert are you using?
I'm using 3, the latest
Okay.
version.
Okay, let me. If there is also a question about Pluto, have you photographed Pluto?
No, it's no, photographing Pluto is deep sky, so it's out of my pay grade. Just kidding. No, you need a deep sky camera for imaging Pluto. It's 13 magnitude, but yeah, we have the image Pluto from Cebu. It's a bit more complicated than imaging planets.
Okay, thank you.
You just point and by regular means using the go-to, but the center is the same, you're using the flip there.
No, I actually use Telrad. Yeah. I have no time for, when it's early in the morning, you have to calibrate the go-to and everything. You don't have time. You just do it, slow it manually and center the planet using Telrad, then flip mirror. Yeah.
Okay. Chris, since we do not hear the audience, if you could repeat the question, that would be great.
Actually, the question was, how do I point my telescope to the planet? Was it go-to or, I use a Telrad, just do it manually. Early in the morning, it's not, you don't have time to calibrate your go-to and everything. So I just do, it takes only a few seconds anyway to point it to the planet, then pick it up on the flip mirror. Any questions for the people here? Yep. You can send me a message on Facebook or Messenger.
There is a question.
Now, yeah, this is something interesting. 8-bit
Sorry to interrupt, Chris. Can you repeat the question for the online audience?
Yes. The question is, whether to use 8-bit, 16-bit or 12-bit. I only use 8-bit because first of all, the file size are smaller. And the difference between 8-bit and 16-bit, especially on planetary imaging, isn't really that, that great. I mean, it's not going to affect the details. And, most of these objects are dim, low surface brightness. So, having 16-bit isn't really gonna, affect greatly your final image quality. So I stick with 8-bit. And also because the file sizes are smaller and it's faster to process an 8-bit than a 16-bit. And another question you might ask, SER or AVI? Yeah, I tried both. First of all, the quality is the same. The file size of the SER is bigger than the AVI. So in the end, what's the point? Yes. It's more or less the same. But one thing about the moon, you'll be using probably faster exposure time and much, much lower gain because it's much bigger. Now, stacking is a different animal. You have to do surface stacking, which is a little more complicated than planetary stacking. So the process is a bit more tedious, but you get it's, yeah. No. Yeah. Well, hydrogen alpha is great for the sun. But in planets, we usually use methane band, which is deeper in the IR. Well, it depends what type of filter you want. There are two types of methane band. The wide band, which is a little more expensive. Oh no, not a little, but much, much more expensive. I think the least expensive one is the one from Chroma. And when I talked to Chroma, they said they were the ones who made the filter for Custom Scientific. So basically, you have the same filter at half the price. So Custom Scientific, I think, sells theirs for 600 plus, and Chroma sells it for around 300. The cheaper ones are from China, but they have, I think, 8 nanometer or something like that bandwidth, and you can get it for even free when you buy some cameras. I really don't know. I don't use their stuff.
Online questions when you have time, Chris.
Sure.
So, can you comment on the obstruction percentage of SCTs, specifically the effect of the secondary obstruction versus resolution?
Well, I've been using SCT ever since, but I don't think it's a problem. The loss isn't really that bad. But I did notice when we were using an RC that it had a bigger effect because the RCs have much, much bigger secondaries than the SCTs.
Thank you. And can you comment on the optimum time for imaging Venus? Is it daylight at high altitude of us?
One problem I have is that I don't image Venus that much. I think other imagers are doing it. The thing is, most of the images of Venus are using UV filters, and I don't think using UV on daylight would be possible. Everything will just be washed out. Probably if you use 1 micron, it might be possible, but anything on visible to lower wave, shorter wavelengths are all washed out during daylight.
Thank you. That's it for now for the online.
No more questions here? Okay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much again, Chris. What a wonderful talk. And I'm looking forward to see many more planetary images coming our way.
images also from you guys here. Now you have no more excuse. The planets are higher now. So yeah, get those images in. Actually, I'd be happy to have more imagers because one problem is that I'm not. In fact, I have a global network of imagers, but we also have some dead spots, and I think most of my U.S. Imagers, I think the westernmost is in Arizona. I don't have a lot of imagers here in California, or none. Yeah, none. We have more on the East Coast. So I hope some of you guys can. All I need are more consistent imagers, those who will take time to image every morning, and yeah, it's a fun hobby where you actually contribute to science. Yeah, it's great to be here.
Okay, Barbara, are we ready to adjourn the online portion of the meeting?
Is this working? Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yeah, I got to sit back and watch it on the overhead. That was really cool. But yeah, that was a great talk. And I hope that all the fine people here will think seriously about joining that planetary imaging network. That sounds like a lot of fun. And do you wish to close the meeting, or shall I?
Oh, the honor is all yours, please.
Okay. Well, thank you all for attending. We are looking forward to seeing you all next month, and we hope you have a wonderful month. And I'm looking forward to seeing hopefully at least some of you tomorrow night out at Anza for the Starbecue. Take care, have a great time, and don't melt in the heat wave. Not a good idea. Take care, people.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.